Welcome back to Theory Hammer, fellow berserkers. I'm the host of this silly nonsense, and this is going to be our, I think, second to last World Eaters unit breakdown for Halloween. And we're going to be taking a look at the Lord of Skulls in this episode. So cleave that like button and the subscribe button, leave a comment, Thunderhammer Nurgle's bell, and then when you're done this video, check out the rest. There's like a whole bunch. We also have a second channel. It's linked down below. It's where all my dumpster videos go, so check that out as well. Shelling complete. Let's talk about the Lord of Skulls. This thing is kind of a hilarious unit. So, it comes in at 450 points. I'm never going to say it's a unit that you have to take, but Jesus, this thing can be pretty crazy. So, let's start with its datasheet here. We got a move of 8, a toughness of 13, a 3-up save, 5-up invuln, 24 wounds, so a couple more than an Imperial Knight, leadership 6, OC of 8. Now, it does come with 2 different guns. It comes with, you're going to take the Gore Storm, or the Demon Gore, the Demon Gore Cannon, the one that's strength 14. You're going to take the Demon Gore Cannon for sure, and then you're also going to take the Skull Hurler, because they're both strength 14 with a decent amount of shots at good AP and pretty high damage. The Demon Gore Cannon is blast, but it's only an 18-inch range, so you do have to get into range with it, but it's strength 14, it's AP 4, and it's D6 plus 2 damage with blast. Okay then. If you take the Skull Hurler, it's hard to say, it shoots across the table with 2d6 shots at strength 14, AP 3, and a flat 3 damage, both hitting on 3s. But if you put them near Angron, give them reroll all hits, then they're going to be rerolling all hits, and then they're going to be hitting with more of their shots. He's got melee as well. He's got his great Cleaver of Khorne with its 2 different profiles. The first one is 5 attacks, hitting on 3s at strength 16, AP 4, and a flat 8 damage. Then you have a sweep profile, 15 attacks at 8, 2, and 2. His ability's kind of interesting. He does have Deadly Demise D6 plus 2, so we go boom biggie. And then he has Blessed Slaughter. Each time that you make a Blessing of Khorne roll, for each enemy unit that it destroyed during the previous battle round, you can add or subtract 1 from one of the dice that you rolled. Pretty weird, but it allows you to do things like get Angron back really, really easily. Right, so World Eaters have a goddamn Imperial Knight, with better guns than an Imperial Knight for the most part, better combat than an Imperial Knight for sure, and it also potentially has better speed than an Imperial Knight. And then for fun, you can just manipulate your blessing rolls if it destroys stuff. Pretty cool. But let's just go over how we got here, and how all this comes together with our army and detachment rules. We'll do the detachment rule first. Alright, so we got Relentless Rage. Each time a World Eaters unit from your army is selected to fight, if it made a charge move, you add 1 to the strength and attack characteristic of their melee weapons. So yeah, you end up with 6 attacks at strength 17, AP 4, and flat 8 damage. It also has 16 attacks at strength 9, AP 2, and flat 2, which is admittedly kind of a travesty compared to its strike profile. So I'll probably just ignore its sweep when I go to do its damage calculations. But we also have an army rule, and it's pretty good. It's going to be your Blessings of Khorne. You have Rage Fueled Invigoration, that gives you plus 2 move, so that makes you move 10 inches instead of 8, which puts you at the same speed as an Imperial Knight. You have Wrathful Devotion, so now it has a 6-up Feel No Pain, just like an Imperial Knight. Martial Excellence will get you sustained hits, and that's going to be really nice for its combat. It's only in combat. It's going to be really nice for its combat attacks, especially if it needs to sweep, if Angron is nearby. It can also fight on death on a 4-up, which is something that I never use, but if you had it up, that's just really funny and very scary. You could be giving it lethal hits in combat, which is probably useless, and then you can also be advancing and charging with it. So now it can have a 10-inch move, plus a d6 advance, plus a charge. And then of course we do have strats like Apoplectic Fury, which allow us to auto-advance 6 inches, so this thing could be moving 16 inches and then charge and get plus 1 to charge from Angron as well. But let's face it, you're probably not going to use that. And that's why I say he can be faster than a knight. Now, while that is funny, and it is a thing that your opponent always has to consider and fear, you're almost never going to do it, and that's because this thing is packing 2 guns, and 2 strong, good guns. But like, how good are they? Well, this is how good they are. With its Demon Gore Cannon, if you're wounding on 3s against a 4-up invuln, you do about 5 or 6 damage or destroy about 1 model, so that's like a Land Raider with Armor of Contempt or something toughness 8 or higher that also has like a 4-up invuln. If you're wounded on 3s against a 5-up, you're looking at about 7 or 8 damage or 1 to 2 models destroyed, so that's like any Marine tank with Armor of Contempt, like a Plague Burst, something that's tough with 5-up invuln there. Wounded on 3s against a 6-up, that's like a hammerhead, for example. It's about 9 damage, or 1 to 2 models destroyed depending on the unit. When you're wounding on 2s, so against something like Paragon Warsuits, or Custodes, or Terminators, or something like that, you're going to be doing about 7 damage to a single target, and you'll kill about 1 model there. If you're hitting on 2s against a 5-up, you do about 9 damage, 10 damage or so, and destroy about 2 models. That's anything that's not toughness 8 or higher that also has a 5-up invuln, I guess. So 8 bound. If you're wounded on 2s against a 6-up, you're looking at about 12 damage or about 2 models. That's going to be something. Votan Thunderers in cover. I don't know. But with your Skull Hurler, that nets you even more damage here. So far, we've killed 1 Terminator. Now, this is only AP 3, so in cover with Armor of Contempt, it only becomes AP 1. So against anything that you're wounding on 3s, that's going to be getting a 3-up save. So that's a Land Raider in cover with Armor of Contempt or Votan Terminators or something like that. You're going to do about 4 damage to it, or you'll destroy about 1 model. If we're at 3s and 4s, you're looking at about 6 damage or 2 models. That'll be a Lehman Russ that's in cover. Wounded on 3s against a 5-up nets you about 8 damage or destroys about 2 to 3 models, and that'd be something like a Plague Burst Crawler, maybe a Hammerhead in cover, if you're looking at a single target. And then for 3s and 6s, you're looking at about 10 damage or 2 to 5 models, just depending on the wound count. And if it's a single target, you're looking at like a Dark Eldar Raider, something that's in cover, or I guess in that case it just has a 6-up invuln. But that's the damage that your Skull Hurler is looking at if you're wounding on 3s. If it's wounding on 2s against a 3-up save, so this is obviously going to be something like Terminators with Armor of Contempt or Paragon Warsuits with Armor of Contempt, something like that, you do about 5 damage or you destroy about 2 models. If you're wounding on 2s against a 4-up invuln, something like Custodians, you'll do about 8 damage or you'll destroy about 2 to 3 models there, so that's pretty good against Custodes. So this thing will wipe a whole unit of them practically with its shooting alone. If you're wounding on 2s against some sort of 5-up invuln, anything with a 5-up invuln or something in cover with a 3-up save, you're looking at about 10 damage there, or 3 to 4 models, depending on their wound count, or just depending on how many you get through, because the damage is pretty high. 2s and 6s, 13 damage, or about 4 models even. And that's things, with a 4-up save that would be in cover, like Scouts or something like that, or Votan Bikes is a thing I can use, I guess. So his damage output is actually pretty good. It's not insanely good. He destroys a Lehman Russ, does about 10 damage to a Land Raider if it's in cover with Armor of Contempt, so that it's fine, but takes out just about any other kind of tank. Does like 12 to 15 to like an Imperial Knight if they have a 4-up invuln. And this, all this math is not including any of the Blast. Once we add in Blast, we do get to about a 4th Terminator in terms of the math. And so with all of its shooting, with just Angron nearby for some rerolls to hit, this thing will wipe almost half a Terminator squad with just its shooting alone, and it will wipe 4 to 5 Custodians as well, depending on how good you roll there. The 5th one, but 4 of them for sure. And then for the Terminators, you're going to be doing 4 on average. So that combined with a charge plus a tank shock, yeah, this thing could definitely be killing an entire Terminator squad in one turn, for sure. But maybe not quite. So its shooting overall is pretty good. It's not insane, though. It does have great anti-tank. It's wounding most tanks on 3s, and so it gives them, 2 wounds at AP 4 for D6 plus 2 damage each, and then 4 more wounds at like AP 3 for flat 3. So unless it's a Land Raider with Armor of Contempt, it's just kind of dead. The scarier thing about its guns is that it could just spike really hard, and then it could still kill a Land Raider in cover with Armor of Contempt, but it doesn't on average. It'll do about 13, like I said, to a Knight after the 6-up Feel No Pain. Destroys 4 Terminators with Armor of Contempt in cover if you add in the Blast, which only the one weapon has, just the Demon Gore cannon. And that's pretty impressive on its own, because destroying half a Terminator squad or even 4 Terminators with Armor of Contempt in cover is pretty hard without dev wounds, and so being able to get half of it done with kind of just the guns it comes with, pretty awesome. But next, let's take a look at its combat as well. So if I need to charge these Terminators, how many of them can I get rid of? Well, in combat, I don't think I'm going to do it sweep, because it's just going to be less damage against pretty much everything forever, except for like Guardsman squads, which all of you knew already. So with its big strike, with its 8 damage strike, if it's wounded on 3s and you're hitting something with a 4-up invuln, so like a Lancer Knight, or maybe Angron or something else, like a Primarch type deal, you do 18 damage to it still, or you destroy 2 models if it's something in it, like some kind of unit. Maybe that's -1 to wound, or -1 to be wounded, whatever that is. You destroy about 2 models. If you're swinging at something with a 5-up invuln, so, and wounding on 3, so like a Knight Atropos or a Plague Burst or anything with a 5-up invuln, I guess a Land Raider would also work here with Armor of Contempt up in combat, still takes 24 damage, or you destroy about 3 models there. If you're wounding on 3s against a 6-up, so something like a Lehman Russ there, you're looking at about 30 damage, or 3 to 4 destroyed models. If you're wounding on 2s against a 4-up invuln, you'll do about 22 damage to that thing, or destroy 2 to 3 models, so something like Paragon Warsuits, and like, I don't know, a Doomstalker, a Doomsday Arc. If you're wounding on 2s against something with a 5-up invuln, so something that has a 5-up invuln that's toughness 7 or less, you do basically 30 damage to it, or 3 to 4 models are destroyed. And then if you're getting a 6-up invuln against my wounding on 2s, you take 37 damage, or 5 models are destroyed, 4 to 5. So something with a 6-up invuln, or just a 2-up save base, so Grey Knight Marines, I guess. And I guess like Centurions as well. This is just wipe a whole squad of Centurions. So he will destroy pretty much anything in combat. You could also give it +1 to wound if you really need to, but its output is already really, really high. Now, the main issue that I have with this thing is basically that it's not Angron. When you take Angron, which you basically always do, you don't have a ton of points to be spending on a 450 point Lord of Skulls, and that is one of his main drawbacks. He's kind of fighting with Angron for that spot. And, 450 points. Like, if he gets caught flat-footed, he's just gonna go down against true anti-tank. He's just basically like a slightly better Imperial Knight, like he's slightly tougher, but any actual anti-tank, like anything strength 13 or 14 or anything higher than that, things that are +1 to wound as well, they're gonna take him down. And he's kind of susceptible to mortal wounds, although he does have a 6-up Feel No Pain and does have 24 wounds, but 6-up Feel No Pain isn't amazing. And so he kind of just has all of the same drawbacks as an Imperial Knight, but he has more wounds, and he does have a higher toughness. And he does have a 5-up invuln all the time. And so that does actually make him more durable. It's just he's not more durable against most things. True anti-tank doesn't care about the extra toughness and a couple of extra wounds. It doesn't matter for things that are wounding on 5s already. But in combat, he's definitely more durable. Or at least he has access to be, because of Khorne cares not. Now, he's -1 damage. So in that circumstance, he probably lives against all but like a select few things, like Sword Brethren. So he's toughness 13 with a 5-up invuln, and now -1 damage with a 6-up Feel No Pain. Against the Avatar, he only takes about 8 damage or so not enough to really put a huge dent in him. He still has 16 left. Although if you're fighting Avatar, he probably just died in the shooting phase. If you're fighting Necrons and the Avatar charges up to you, it does about 11 damage, so still have 13 wounds left, which is great. Even when Angron charges it, he only does about 19 damage, and if Angron can't kill this guy, pretty much nothing can. There's one other issue that I have with this guy, besides that he's a 450 point, Imperial Knight type thing that can just die all at once, and I generally don't like things like that. The other issue that I have with him, though, is that he cannot move over things that are 4 inches or less in height. And so it's actually like less maneuverable than an Imperial Knight, albeit it's capable of being 60% faster than that, but usually it's not going to be. And when you gotta like bounce around like a pinball instead of just going straight, it's a little gray whether or not you'll end up moving faster or slower. And so that is another drawback that he has, is that he can't move through certain terrain pieces, and so he's kind of stuck going around like a Land Raider has to, and he's a big-ass model. But a lot of the time, that isn't going to matter too much, because you do want him to be shooting. You don't really want him to be advancing, because he doesn't have assault weapons or anything. You want to get his shots off, and getting his shots off is pretty important since he's so many points. You need him doing things in all phases if possible. And his shooting is pretty decent. If you can get him into a spot where he won't just die in one turn, he will put a pretty big hurt on your opponent. If you can get several turns of shooting out of him, and then do a charge, he should help you put away victory, because it's good damage, and it's good damage to basically every kind of target. He also just has a lot of options, generally speaking, because he has access to all of the same stratagems that the World Eaters units have access to. He has access to Apoplectic Fury, so he can be auto-advancing 6 inches if you really wanted to. He has access to that Khorne Cares Not, so if somebody charges him, he's not going to die. Unless he only has a couple of wounds left, then you probably don't use it at that point. But if he's pretty good on wounds, if somebody charges in with a unit that's 2 damage or maybe even 3 damage, but not, it's like a ton of attacks, and you're like, oh, -1 damage, plus a 5 up invuln. Yeah, that's great, plus a 6 up feel no pain. You then do have Blood Offering. It's another strat you could use, so when he inevitably charges something and kills it, yeah, you can just automatically do a blessing. So you're going to pick like Feel No Pain that turn, because you picked 2 other things probably. Or maybe not, maybe you'll pick something else, but you have the option to pick something else, because you just make a blessing roll. You then have for the Skull Throne, which can give him +1 to wounded combat. Definitely doesn't need it, but he has access to that as well. And I don't think I've ever talked about Gory Massacre in any of these unit breakdowns for World Eaters, because it's generally pretty garbage. But if you do end up using this, because he's so damn big, he could actually like end up hitting multiple units. So that's another one that you could use as well. And they do also have Blood Offering. So if someone does destroy him in the shooting phase, you can just, well, in any phase, but generally it's going to be in the shooting phase, you can just sticky the objective, which is nice. So all the same strats that every other unit in the army has access to, because I don't think any of these have any restrictions, like, at all. And so you can combine these with your detachment rule, with your army rule, with Angron's abilities, to turn this thing into a pretty scary unit for 450 points. And you can be doing things like putting 8-bound in combat with him so that he's not targetable easily. Things like that, so that units can't fall back. And so there's like little things you can do to try to help him survive, but he can put out a ton of damage. And if he can get his damage in early, and your opponent can't really deal with him, yeah, you're going to have a hard time with it. I'd love to see a list that has like 2 of these things with Angron and a bunch of other stuff, because you can fit it all in, I'm pretty sure. You could fit like 2 units of Jackals, 3 units of Spawn, just to like do actions and stuff. Pretty sure you can even fit 2 units of 5 Terminators, because I love those things. 2 Lords of Skulls, and then Angron. So you have ways to manipulate your blessing roll with the Jackals and with your Lord of Skulls, because they have all these abilities that do that. And so you could be just throwing Angron at people and just getting them back like every turn. That sounds funny, but definitely not competitive, and no one should ever do that. But damn, that would be funny. 2 Lords of Skulls, Angron, and just some random shit. And the Lords of Skulls just run up and try to do as much damage as possible, as quickly as possible, because Angron's gonna die, and they help bring him back. But in conclusion here, he's just pretty good. I mean, he gives them something that they don't have, which is pretty decent shooting. And he's just like a big centerpiece model that can kind of do a lot of things. He can move really fast, he shoots really well, he can advance and charge if he really needs to, get into combat and just absolutely murder something that is very important. Or he can kind of hang back and use his guns and his durability to try to help blow things off the table as your other stuff is charging up there. Or you could take 3 of them with Angron or something like that. But yeah, good movement, good combat, good shooting, good durability, you know, all better than an Imperial Knight. And like, what else would you want out of a unit like that, you know? It checks all the boxes. It's just hard to justify and hard to play when Angron is also in your list, but I don't know. You could just say fuck it and run 2 of them, and then have Spawn and Jackals, 2 units of them, and Terminators. Pretty sure that's like exactly 2,000 points. Because the 2 Lords of Skulls are 900, Angron's 415, the 3 units of Spawn are 195, so that together is 620. So now you're at 1520. 2 units of Jackals is 1650. Maybe you're 10 points over. But anyway, that's going to do it for this breakdown of the Lord of Skulls. The last unit we're going to be looking at here for this series of breakdowns for the World Eaters. There's been a lot for this for this index, because they just have a lot of really good units. The last one we're going to do is going to be the 8-bound, of course. Couldn't leave him out, so if you guys want to see the video, make sure that you like and subscribe, hit it with your chainsaws, leave a comment down below, check out our other videos, hit Nurgle's bell icon with your Thunderhammer, do all that kind of stuff that you would expect Khorne to want you to do, and I will see you guys in that next video.